video to me was a gold mine.
So if you got a new boss that was more into DC than Marvel, you're off to a bad start.
67% more click rates or something,
wow.
Which is quite a big impact. Some colleagues that weren't working with video were, they were stressed and struggling and so on.
Hej og velkommen til dagens episode af Drevet af Content, og velkommen tilbage. Jeg er rigtig, rigtig glad for at se dig her på podcasten igen. Mit navn det er Niklas Askling, og jeg er stifter og ejer af virksomheden Forbedre, hvor vi lever af at fortælle virksomheders historie gennem foto og video. Vi har en spændende gæst i studiet, og jeg glæder mig rigtig meget til den her episode. Dagens gæst er tidligere medarbejder i virksomheden Pleo, som du måske kender. Og her var han altså med til at bruge og få virksomheden implementeret i verdenen, der hedder content, og især content omkring personlige videoer og brugen af video, når det kommer til salg og outreach til kunderne hos Pleo. Og jeg vil introducere gæsten, og det vil jeg som altid gøre i det her kamera herovre. Og så vil jeg også skifte til engelsk, for vi skal nemlig tale engelsk i dag med dagens gæst. Han er nemlig fra Sverige. So, today's guest, like I said in the beginning, is a ex-Pleo employee, and he was responsible for the entire Nordics. He did a lot of outreach to both Danish, Swedish, primarily Swedish. He is Swedish by heart, and also Norwegian. And then he slowly switched over when they wanted to dip their toes in the French market, and he started that out before he went on new adventures. Personally, I know him as a very, very kind person, and he is great on camera. And I also really, really like his work with personal videos, and I know that he achieved great results by doing so and using that as a great tool and a great platform. And lastly, I just want to say a great warm welcome to Björn Ingmansson.
Thank you. Super excited to be here, and what an introduction.
Yeah. I try my best. And Björn, the introduction is always built on what we have been able to dig out from social media and stuff like that. And I also know you a little bit. We met a few times. But please feel free to introduce yourself.
Yes, of course. So my name is Björn, and I work currently at a company called Gennem, which is also a fintech. And I started my career in Denmark at a place called Graduateland. And after a year at Graduateland, I finally got a hold of our Pleo cards after doing lots of expenses while traveling in Sweden, because I was selling towards the Swedish market. Yeah. And that's when I discovered this awesome product that Pleo actually was, and then applied for a job there. Yeah. So then I worked for 4 years in Pleo and developed my career, went from customer success to then what became product marketing, and now went on to another product marketing role within Gennem. Awesome. So that's a little bit my career story in Denmark as well. Now I moved back to Sweden and live north of Gothenburg with my beautiful wife, my son Neil, and my dog, a Finnish Lapphund who's 2 years old, Enzo. I know, just teasing a little bit, I know we will be meeting Enzo later on in this episode as well. Yes, exactly.
So that's a little tease for you guys out there for the later episode. Björn, that's super exciting, and we also always start the episode and the podcast by asking our guest, when we say content, what does that mean to you?
To me, it primarily means learnings. So I look at content daily, like most of us here, right? But I believe ultimately it's about learning, and good content is about learning. Okay. I also think about communications, getting a message through from A to B, and the art thereof. And good content is supposed to ultimately give a message from point A to point B in the best possible way. Yeah. And within content, you have a ton of tools you can play around with. I mean, my favorite is definitely video, and we'll talk probably a lot about that in this session. But there's a lot of tools and tricks within your toolbox to do great content. For sure. Yeah.
And I really like that answer. And we actually got, when recording this earlier today, we did a podcast as well. So that's in another episode. But we got pretty much the same answer. And I really, really like that answer as well. It's like a lot of time when people, that's why we ask the question when we ask people about content, they mention photo, video, a good copy, the good text, whatever. And I really like your answer about it not really being about the format, but more about being like the purpose. Content needs to communicate something, and then whatever you package it into, whether it be video, photo, whatever, you have to find the right format for that communication to come across.
Yeah, no, definitely. And within that, I also feel like you have, of course, the external content that everybody sees, the public content on social media platforms. But as important would be internal content within a company,
Sure.
or the way you communicate with your coworkers, your customers, your partners.
Yeah.
To me, it's very broad ultimately to say content, and the way I work with content is quite broad, and that's what I love about it. You can apply video, you can apply copy to very different places and
purposes.
It's fun to experiment with, and,
for sure.
And that's really ultimately why I'm sitting here talking about it.
Yeah, for sure. It really is.
It really, like, when I make a video or put a lot of efforts on something, that's the fun part of my job, right? Like every time I do a video, I'm super excited about my job. So then I'm like, okay, this is the fun part of my job. What how do you have fun at work? Okay, I do more videos and I have more fun.
For sure. And maybe we can transition to my first question, actually, that how did you work with content at Pleo? Maybe take us through, like, how was that?
So as I said before, I started within customer success. So within customer success, I was onboarding a lot of new customers onto the platform. And how I fell into video ultimately was, there were so many customers to serve, but my calendar was getting more and more cramped. And my colleagues' calendars were looking insane. So I started looking for solutions. And within customer success, when you're onboarding a customer, there's a lot of steps that are very simple, straightforward. I mean, inviting users, ordering cards, making a transfer to your account. These things are, and a monkey could do them if you just guide the monkey well enough.
Yeah.
So why not change a little bit our approach to onboarding and do a lot more proactive video?
Yeah.
And it went in a second that it made so much sense for both the customers and for us. So for me personally, I was saving heaps of time. It was uncomparable. Some colleagues that weren't working with video were, they were stressed and struggling and so on. Yeah. I was, it wasn't a holiday. I was still working hard, but it felt like it, and it was much more fun.
Exactly, and it gave you time to do other stuff than just onboarding, because, like you say, I mean, your calendar, you have 24 hours every day, or every day, and if you just keep piling on more customers, I mean, how are you gonna? You're either gonna hire your way out of it or think smart.
Yeah.
And how did you? So you used video. Can you elaborate a little bit more on, like, how did you work with video and how did you solve that then?
Yeah. So initially, I started using the screen sharing tools like Loom and like the basic ones that we had within the company, and started sending out Looms to my customers then. And then as I evolved, I just found that I needed another tool that could scale a bit more. And that's when I started looking into other video tools for sales specifically. So you can find heaps of sales tools out there. Yeah. They're not very often positioned at customer success, but the advantage of these sales tools is really that you can scale that process. So you don't have to re-record every time the same snippet. So the 3 steps I was talking about before, I mean, those were pre-recorded in a good quality and in a good setting, and then I would just do the 30-second intro. And that would feel like a personal video to you.
Yes.
And it would break the ice between me and my customers, but it would take much less effort ultimately than repeating these 3 steps, which I did initially. My first videos, I did 5-minute snippets of videos, but in time it became maybe a 20-second exercise to send out a video to a customer. That has to be compared to the half-hour meetings I would book for
sure.
For onboarding my clients initially.
For sure.
And there's also one little thing I'd like to note, that there's a weird thing with video where you create a completely different relationship with your client. So they actually know you by the time they watch your video, or they, at least they feel they know you. I at that point, I know their business, I know who they are, their name, how they look most likely, but I don't have a personal relationship with the client yet. But what's funny is when I actually take a meeting with them after that, you can already feel like that they're super comfortable. So on the one hand, I was optimizing the process. On the other, I was making them comfortable much quicker once we had that first meeting, which just made everything easier for me because, you know, when you're talking to a client for the first time, there are these 5 first awkward minutes where you have to get to know each other. We're humans, right? And it was quite striking to me that made a huge difference on that initial contact.
For sure. And do you think what made the difference in that? Is it that you give it do you think the difference was that you gave it that personal spin, like saying, because like you said, like 90% of the video, 80-90% of the video is pre-recorded. It's like making that intro different every time. So I say, hey Björn, so nice to see you and talk to you over the phone. Like we agreed, I just wanted to send you a quick video where I show you the 3 key features when you get started with Pleo. Is it that I say, hey Björn, and I look into the camera and it...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I could have done just one video and sent it out to everyone, but it's always nice to get that personal touch. And it will make you want to click that if you know it's been made personally from you. So it's also a question of open rates and conversion here, right? There's different ways we approach this, but in the email, for example, embedding the video as a GIF with a play button. So one of the tools, Personal, helped me do that really quickly by just copy-pasting in the video into my emails. And then that would have 67% more click rates or something, which is quite a big impact. Especially if you're doing these videos all the time, you want the click rates to be high, right? For sure. So that's one part, but also the fact that you can see me waving. There's your name within the title of the video. There's all these little bits and pieces you need to just put in place to show this is a personal video. For sure, and I think it's pretty much. I mean, when you think about it, it's almost the same as well. If you receive an email where it's just like a boring email signature with like name, title, whatever, phone numbers, you can up that by putting a nice photo. Either it's like a photo is better than no photo, but then a good professional looking photo is good. Maybe it's on brand, like we do here with Foe. We have the purple background. Everyone looks we don't look the same, but we have the same style. And then one up that with like having a little gift, because then it's also an element of surprise, right? I open an email, it's like, what is that like? Definitely, and it makes you stand out, right? It's in the crowd of emails. I mean, we all have hundreds of emails a day, and it makes you stand out. For sure. And there's one other little tip that I actually covered in a video like 4 years ago that I put on LinkedIn, but also just putting that little video emoji within the subject of your email can boost. I can't remember exactly the metrics there, but it boosted my opening rate quite a lot. It stands out in your list of emails that there's one with a video emoji. For sure. Of course, everybody starts putting emojis everywhere, so maybe at some point this doesn't work anymore. But that was a learning back then, at least, that you could tweak tiny little things in your messaging, or in your copy, or in how you design the email to make a big impact ultimately in how people perceive you. For sure. And I see people actually doing the same thing. I have it myself. People putting emojis in their names on LinkedIn. Because then if you're tagged in a comment with several people, your name stands out because you're right by the emoji, right? You're not just drowning in like 15 names of comments. So it's an interesting point. It's definitely an eye catcher. I want to talk to you because you and I did a video with you. Also like 4 or 5 years ago.
a testimonial case of you using one of the products that you talk about here, like the personal tool by 23, a company that makes both a webinar software, a personal platform, and so on. And I remember that we talked about there that you were actually right there. You were behind the scenes. We talked about it. You were on a journey to get more and more of your colleagues like to understand you gotta use videos, guys. Like you free up so much time. Take me through that journey of like getting people and your colleagues hooked on video.
Yeah. It's an interesting one because I think I still fail today at that, right? Video to me was a gold mine, so I wanted to share it with all my colleagues so they could, get the same value out of video that I was getting. But I think there's a bit of a mental thing here like a mental hurdle before you start making videos. And I was lucky enough to be pushed by my manager back then. I was a junior customer success manager, and she kind of pushed me into it slowly but surely. And I think there's probably some, natural also skills or instincts or personalities also that made me maybe more prone than one of my colleagues to fall into the video world, right? But ultimately, I think once you get over that, like awkward hearing your voice, like that's I think that hearing your voice and seeing yourself on video is a very awkward and unnatural moment, really.
Yeah.
And it's important to work that away so that you can start creating the same quality video any of us here would do, right? Yeah. But that mental hurdle is something I'm still struggling teaching or telling people to get over. For sure. There's a lot of people within the video world that is urging people to just work with it, like try it. I mean, for me, I would say do all your Slack messages as video messages to begin with. Just like instead of sending a short Slack message to your colleague or Teams message, send them a short snippet. You can send videos in Slack now. Click on it. Say it out loud and rewatch it if you want to. It's never going to be perfect, right? No. But just that little thing will help you get used to hearing your voice and looking at yourself. For sure.
So your best advice would be get started. Just do it.
Yes, most likely that's a good advice. But there's also a lot of tips and tricks again here on just how to make videos more nicer looking and that sound nicer.
And do you have those? Like, feel free, fire away.
Yeah, of course. No, but it's, for example, you need to put the camera a little bit over your eyes, so you don't look into your nose.
The double chin shot,
double chin and nose, right? So you naturally just look a little bit nicer from there. There's a lot about the lighting. We can see in this setting, right? We have a lot of lights to make us look good, and it's important to not put yourself, for example, in front of a window where there's light coming in from the back, and then you're all dark. And there's also a lot of relatively cheap tools out there, so microphones and lights. So a lot of gamers that are streaming will have a light to make them look nicer on camera. Mm-hmm. So all these things also make it more enjoyable for me to be on camera, to do my videos, and to feel like I'm doing something that looks nice, right? So that helped me as well develop, and I just add more and more tools on top, and maybe one day I'll take the step and invest in a nice camera, and I have a really nice webcam, but if I want to take it one step further for my videos, I might up that budget a bit as well.
For sure. But I think it's also a matter of like people sometimes, just like you said, sometimes people underestimate like how much you can do with very little. Like even the webcam in your, let's say you don't want to spend a penny. Just start out on your laptop. Everyone pretty much is working from a laptop. Just, by switching from here and then just like, I have a big window here. Why not use that as a softbox, right? It's an overcast day. Start there. experiment with it to begin with, and then you start seeing, okay, every time I face the window, I look better. Okay, if I get an eye level, it looks better. And take me through, because I remember we talked about that. Some of the little things that were attached to your screen at your Pleo desk were somewhat simple, but that was a tiny bit step up. Can you take us through your setup, how that looked?
Yeah, definitely. So I had one of these Logitech webcams, 920, I believe. It's a cheap webcam, right? Yeah. And your work will most likely be willing to pay for it if you're going to use it, right? So Pleo bought me that, and then I also ordered a light. Actually, no, that was a colleague had a light. One of the videographers of Pleo had a light that I was able to borrow every time I would make my videos. In the end, I just hijacked it because it was on my table all the time because I needed it all the time. Yeah. But those two things, along with a good headset for the microphone, were enough for me to do not high production and high quality videos, right? No. But to have the level where I feel like, okay, this is actually a nice way of conveying my message to those clients, right? Yeah. And it looked relatively professional, but I remember as well. That's a funny story that I had. I hijacked as well the nicest spot in the office with a nice background with a little flower or whatever. But then the CTO, Nicolo, and the whole engineering team took over our floor. So then I ended up on the top floor with the printer on the back. Oh. And then there came some nice videos where people were printing on the back and they would feature on my customer videos. Yeah. But I missed that nice background I had. It was good lighting and stuff. So... But you can try around, and I do it at home now as well. My colleagues sometimes might think I'm crazy because I walk around the house trying to find a good
find a good spot.
I mean, if you can look better just by switching around a little bit the cam, everybody would do it, right? For sure. So there's a lot of small tips and tricks like that, and I mean the budget I had in Pleo was maybe around 1,000 crowns or something. Yeah. And you can argue that 1,000 crowns in a business setting is next to nothing, right? Compared to the computer, which cost 15 times that, or my salary, which cost a lot as well. So, in the big world of things, that investment for Pleo probably was very quickly
that was like a grain of sand. Yeah. For sure. But in Pleo, you worked with the Nordics. I was talking about this in my intro as well. And you worked with the Nordics and then slowly started to transition before you went on new adventures to focus on France.
Yes.
Did you see any, and what was your approach to working with the French and the French market in your whole use of video? Did you see any changes in?
Yeah, I mean, there is a cultural change, and for background, I grew up in France for 20 years, so I am native in French and so on. So it was quite natural, and I wanted to kind of also, because I had that upbringing, I thought, why not put it at the service of Pleo, but also try something else at that point, because I had been onboarding 3,000 customers in Swedish for 2 years. At some point, you want to try something else, right? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say it's fundamentally different the way I was working with Sweden and France, but there's also, of course, cultural nuances. I mean, in Sweden, we're very personal in the sense that we say you as in English, right? In France, you are a bit more polite. Okay. So you would address them in third person, your customers, and so on. So there's a little bit of a different relationship in that sense. But I think as soon as you adapt to that, and as soon as you get comfortable with speaking about your product and your company in French, the output wasn't fundamentally different. It was more, small nuances in the culture.
But did that make it did it make it more difficult to then have the same impact with like a personal video? If like the Swedes are used to being very much like, Because that was your main point just a second ago. Like that personal touch really made a big difference. But did you see a difference then in the French?
I mean, I still kept it somewhat personal with the name, the company name, and making sure it was the last name. Then in France, often if it was the first time, I would reach out.
Yeah.
So it was still, the personal bit was still there. I think I might have gotten even more interest in France because it felt to me like they were even more behind in terms of that sort of communication.
Yeah. Okay.
In Sweden, it's picking up, right? You have quite a lot of tools and a lot of people communicating via video. So, a lot of sales processes today are via video. Maybe not so much 5 years ago when I started with video, but in France it felt a bit more like they felt surprised in a great way, and
so the wow factor was even more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have to consider it was in the beginning of COVID, so that it ran a bit short, my France run, because COVID hit, I think, March 2020, if I remember correct, in Europe, and I started this job 1st of March 2020. Okay. So. I had to work on this, since I couldn't fly to France and meet my customer in real life. So I had to find another way there to create that relationship.
Yeah.
And this was a great way. I think I created good first contacts so that we could discover everything we needed to discover, because it was primarily discovery work I was doing. So reaching out to accountants in France, to financial directors in France, to understand a little bit. Yeah, but how are we going to position Pleo in France to succeed?
Yeah.
And I think ultimately with the results I got and with the contacts I developed, being remote, so being on distance from France, I would say video really helped me get there.
Yeah.
I also had initially some social media videos to my own network, because I grew up in France. I, of course, have a lot of friends left in France, and they started sharing that video to their networks, and that just created that perfect first impression, but also first contact with the people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My brother, for example, still lives in France. He gave me 2 or 3 financial directors that I started speaking with, for example. So ultimately, content and video content really helped me just speed up this process for me at that point.
At least kick in a door at places, right?
Yeah.
Did you now, like, touching briefly on, because we luckily we're over the whole pandemic thing. We're pretty much, at least that's what it feels like. Did you experience, because now you've been working with videos like a long time before that the pandemic hit, did you experience a shift in the way that people started using videos and perceived video messages, and like everyone now, no one is alienated to like a Zoom or a Skype meeting.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I mean, everybody's doing video, whether they like it or not.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're always on video, it feels like, when you're working, because even if you're not remote, very often you have someone remote on your team, and then you need to be on video.
Yeah.
So I think people have naturally become a bit more comfortable with the format.
For sure.
That said, it's not yet there where they get over this hurdle I was speaking of earlier, of feeling comfortable talking right into a camera, and because that's important if you want to engage your audience, to speak to your audience directly in the camera.
Yeah.
So there's still a little hurdle, but I think it's much lesser than it was pre-pandemic.
For sure, and I think I can definitely recognize this when we go out sometimes and film with people that needs to be on camera. It's very, just because you're on camera doesn't mean that it looks like you like being. You can see when people are not comfortable on camera, and just like you said there, people are getting more and more used to being on Skype, Zoom, whatever meetings, and seeing themselves. So that's a good start. But it doesn't mean that they like to be there, right? Yeah. Some people hate when they have to turn on the webcam, but that's just like company policy or something. So I agree. It's
still. And I mean, some people will never love it. I mean, we all are different. We all love different things. I enjoy it. I enjoy the output it gives. I enjoy, doing it. Yeah. So, of course, I'm maybe more prone, and I know you are as well, great on camera. So you're more prone to become good on camera if you enjoy it, right? Yeah. But ultimately, I feel like the people are more used to it, and the hurdle is a bit lessened by that, right?
For sure. And sometimes I also hear people, that's maybe like a third species, people that like it and people that don't. And then there's this somewhat in between where people that don't really like it, but really see a great benefit. Like they can see what it does, or they're like, I don't really want to be on camera, but I can see the outcome when I post something on LinkedIn. I just do like a quick selfie video, because we can talk about that, like quality, quantity, where we lie on that one. But there's also that people can really see, okay, I have to do it because it's really good for my personal brand or my job or whatever. Björn, we've gotten pretty much midway, and now I want to touch on the segment that we always have in the podcast, which is called Show Me Your Content. And we asked you to bring a piece of content that is either professionally or privately, or maybe a mix close to you. And dear listener, viewer, if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see the piece of content that Björn decided to bring. It is a video, but I will show the video and then we will be right back.
Yes, good boy, you're a good boy. Hey there, it's Björn from Pleo. And as you can see, I'm in dire need of a haircut, but unfortunately our hairdressers here in Copenhagen are closed at this time. And I've got a little guest right here. Let me introduce you to little Enzo. And if he's a good boy, and if you're lucky enough, we might see him grow throughout these newsletters. Anyway, let's get to our news. First up is our new World of Work series. It's a video series that goes a little bit deeper into how our customers use Pleo. And first up is Ninjas in Pyjamas, my personal favorite, a Swedish esports team that absolutely loves Pleo. I'll see you next month for even more exciting news. See ya! Okay, he might...
So, Björn, we just watched the video, and just like you mentioned in the intro, the little fluff ball, Enzo.
Yes.
Why did you decide to bring this piece of content? What does it mean to you? And tell me a little bit about this video.
So we got Enzo at 8 weeks old. I think it was around the 20th of January. And I think this was recorded around the 25th. So he was really the cutest little pup, naughty little pup at that point. No, the reason I shared it is because, as any dog person and any dog owner, I mean, it was just such a fun memory to bring him to the office that day and start recording, and it fit quite well because I was doing some newsletters, but it was a video newsletter. I was introducing the features we would have launched that month, which is exciting in itself. But I wanted something a bit more personal, something a bit more me than just standing there. Introducing the features, and Enzo came in right in a good time there to make then the 2021 I think videos newsletters a little bit more interesting for everybody. For sure. And they certainly did. I mean, ultimately a dog attracts eyes as well. That wasn't really the purpose, but it was also. Like, this is the selfish side of it, maybe, but it's also to share with my network and my friends about what's happening in my life. And
for sure,
my friends in France that I meet once a year, they know who Enzo is through those videos. You know who Enzo is through those videos. Yeah. So there's something special about those videos ultimately, and they stay with me despite compared to maybe the other videos that are not as close to my heart, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, I will still maybe look back at them as really fun memories.
For sure. And do you see that, because you say personal, and now like personal videos, like gives it an extra dimension, right? Because do you see your use of, you're very active and good at using video, obviously on LinkedIn, and do you see that mix of like mixing in some personal glitter on those, but still keeping it, because I think people could agree when they see this video, it's still like, it has a message, it's still professional, but it still has that like, okay, so now we know Björn a little better. Do you see that? Like, is that something you think about when you create content for LinkedIn, for example?
Think about is maybe pushing it. I don't think about it, but I just want to come as myself, right? Okay. When I do my content, because I think it's hard to fake who you are and to be someone you're not really.
For sure.
And I also relate a lot more with people that are themselves in video than someone who's reading off a script that he's been told by his CEO to read. It's not very interesting when it's like that.
No.
So I want to bring in some life, because I see the effect of that is much greater than if I do something scripted and boring, right?
Yeah, and just like you said, maybe also important, just like you said, like you connect with that kind of content yourself as well. So it's not like to sound like speculative or anything. I know that you're not making content because of that. It needs to be informative, and then but it's. I sense that myself as well. I also see some posts doing better than others. Some people commenting, engaging more. And, you know, even though you wanted to persuade some newsletter stuff or some informative stuff, like, it's also nice to just see that people love your dog, as an example, right? And
exactly.
People also come, because, I mean, whether people, you know, come for the informative stuff or the cutesy fluff ball or whatever, it's just nice, because then people like also buy into you, who you are, and people, you know, show that, hey, Björn, you're cool.
No, but definitely. And I mean, ultimately you need to relate to people, and people need to understand who you are, and just genuinely enjoy what you're doing. Ultimately, it's a little bit of entertainment as well, right? Yep. Bringing in my dog has an entertainment value.
Yeah.
But it's like there's a lot of people who put funny things in their slides in a professional setting.
Yeah.
So the CRO of Juni is a huge Marvel fan, and he will have a Marvel reference on nearly all of his slides. As a nerd, I love that, right? And I love that he does that, because I would not have the same relationship with that person if he didn't show that side of him, right? And I think, just from a personal perspective, it just makes my relationship better when I'm genuine in my content, like in real life, just as in a work meeting, right?
For sure.
It shouldn't be any different with content, right?
For sure. So if you got a new boss that was more into DC than Marvel, you're off to a bad start.
No, I don't have any animosity. What I can say, though, is I'm quite passionate about people with passions. It's a weird thing, but it excites me when people are passionate about something, whether it's flying a plane. One of my colleagues and someone I'm starting a company with now on the side, he's jumpsuits, like he jumps from planes. I think that's so cool, and he's really nerdy about it. And all these different nerdy things, I love it. So if you come with something you're passionate about, whether it's horses or planes, I'm interested in that.
I agree, and I really like that you use nerdy and nerd in like a positive way, because I completely see it the same way. I don't necessarily connect to someone who loves horses, but when I can feel the passion, like we share the same passion for something. I nerd out on cameras and gear. You nerd out on this, but when you feel that people have that same, like, you can see them light up, it's like you kind of get sucked in, whether it be, you know, stamps or horses, right? It's
and there's something magical about just accepting also what your passions are.
For sure.
You know, because there is a social pressure, and, you know, going out nightclub, like a lot of people are doing stuff that they don't genuinely like just because it's what society does, right?
For sure.
But I love it when people show the world what they love and like, and
especially when they don't give a shit if people like it or not. It's just like,
that's
go
just
against
being
the stream.
yourself ultimately, right?
And
and I like that about again, people I meet, but also the content I would see on social media. And sometimes it is very impersonal and it might be super interesting, but if I don't connect with the person in any way, I might just switch off just on
You're off. You're already swiping, right?
On the contrary, I might listen to some people talk about some stuff I have no need for in my life just because they're nice and interesting people.
Yeah,
right?
for sure. I get it. Björn, you were briefly, and you also showed Enzo in your video, and I know for a fact that in Pleo, you guys worked and made a whole, which was, when I watched that, I was like, fucking masterpiece. You made like a full-on video at some point with all the dogs being the employees.
Hi, I'm Bowie. I'm the boss here at Good Pooches Inc., the big dog. We're a dog consultancy firm helping puppies become good boys and girls. There's Dante, our office manager in security. That's Buddy. He does marketing stuff. Our designers, Munta in Jamaica. Suki, head of customer success. There's Gertrude. She's late a lot. And Bodil, our head of finance. We need to buy a lot of stuff to keep the business running smoothly. And in the past, our expense management was a bit rough. We had no overview of who was buying what. There were so many reimbursements and lots of paperwork to do. Then we got our paws on Pleo. It's made paying for things so much easier. And now the Pleo team has got a new treat for us. They call it Fetch. Fetch is great. It connects Pleo to your Gmail account and automatically sniffs out receipts in your inbox. We're no longer running around taking photos or screenshots of online receipts, which is hard enough when you don't have opposable thumbs. It also means less paperwork for Bodil, and we're all pretty happy about that. So, would we recommend Pleo? I mean, does a dog wag its tail? Pleo.
I would like for you to take us through what went in, not that you created that, but you were on board and you were in the Pleo team when you made this. What went into that process, and why did you make a video that was just like, the CEO needs to be a dog?
Yes, no, it's a fantastic video. And I wasn't product marketing manager at that point, sadly, because I would have loved to launch that. I think the ground idea came from Luke, our brand dad, as we called him in Pleo back then. But I reserve to be wrong there in case it wasn't him. But it was quite natural because we had a feature that would automatically go and retrieve your receipts from your inbox to attach them to the correct receipt. And some competitors had launched features that were a little bit in the space that were called Collect or Gmail integration, things like that. And it wasn't, let's just say that wasn't very exciting names for how exciting this feature actually was, because it's actually a deal breaker, right?
And now I remember what it was. It was called Fetch, right?
Yes, there you go. So I would imagine this happened during a creative session in the brand team, that they would, have a naming convention like we always do, and just settle on Fetch. Yeah. And from Fetch, it was only natural that we came up with the dog idea and the fact that then the dog fetches his toys just like Pleo in that case fetches the receipts from Gmail. I was lucky to launch a similar feature now in Juni where I could have a bit more my stamp, but unfortunately we couldn't use Fetch because that was already, it would have been a bit boring to copy paste that. But it was a fantastic video where people really also could relate to the Pleo brand all of the sudden, and really see us as a creative and cool company, right?
For sure. Within not just like a tech company that does
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, my host mother, so I call her my host mother. I went to Australia for a year to a family, right? So she's my host mom. she has dogs, and she saw that on Facebook or whatever, and just was like super excited about that. Someone in Australia who is not at all the target market of Pleo really got excited by that. And I mean, ultimately, that was probably the funnest, campaign we had at Pleo throughout all the days I was there, at least, and it was real fun to see it come to life. I also think that we had actually before Fetch some cats throughout the app, and that's our head of design, Pete, that would want to. He loves cats, so he wanted to put that a little bit in the design. Like if you had no expenses, it would show a sad cat with no expenses or something like that.
So then you go,
So I think the animal part also came a little bit probably from there, but for sure. But I agree, that was probably the most impactful and the ad that the people remember the most from Pleo now.
And I mean, you've done something right when it just goes somewhat viral, right? It really, at least, I mean, in my LinkedIn feed, it was all over the place. And I think I only really connected with you in Pleo at that point, and it was just everyone shared it. Yeah. And I remember I was like, at that point, I've gotten that and then a few other examples throughout the years as a videographer. And I was like, when I looked at it, I was like, why didn't I come up with that? Like, I want to make something like that because it was just like so well thought out. Like, just like you said, the naming and everything. And I don't know if you did it before, but didn't that also kind of like feed into Pleo then kind of being like a place where people brought their dogs more and more? Like, or did it even start before that?
I think we had it before, but ultimately in the Copenhagen office, I believe there was some people allergic, so we were maybe respecting their allergies a bit and not bringing them in all too much. Yeah. But very welcoming to dogs, and
for sure.
I mean, for me now, that's an important part because I love bringing my dog to work as well. Yeah. So it was definitely impactful in that way as well. So people just get in a better mood when there's dogs around, and why not then put other people outside of the company in a better mood by sharing a dog video as well.
For sure, and it definitely had that impact. Björn, we're getting to the next segment of our podcast, which is 5 quick ones.
Yeah.
So, are you ready? It's a yes or no kind of thing, and this or that? Okay.
I'll try to be quick.
Okay. Social media or email marketing?
Social media.
Quick personal videos or bigger, well-thought-out video productions?
Bigger, well-thought-out video productions.
Oh, interesting. Do we need more personal in marketing in the future?
Definitely.
Do we need more content in the future?
Maybe.
Okay. Can everyone launch a product in any country?
No.
Okay.
That's definitely...
Elaborate on that.
Can anyone launch a product in any country? I think... I mean, you need to find product market fit, and different countries might be completely different in the needs they have or the culture they have. I mean, if we're looking at Pleo, we were a Scandinavian country, and our values are transparency and
very much, and it's very much like a Copenhagen-based company as well, right?
But it goes through all the way to the product, right? Whereas our French competitor is much more around control, which comes from the culture they have in France, which I'm also very, very, aware about. So, I think ultimately your product will fit a different market depending on
So what did you learn maybe? Because you pretty much say like no to the last one. What would then be your what did you learn from then taking it to France, and were there some if you want to take your product to another country, what would be your biggest or your best advice?
I mean, it's ultimately understanding the local culture and the local people, the customers, their problems, their needs, and then build the messaging around that. So you can't copy-paste. So I remember this very clearly. We have a slogan was "Power to your people," which makes sense in English. In French, it sounds like, you're a communist wanting to take over the country, right?
Okay.
So if we said pouvoir au peuple, that wouldn't work in France. So we had to kind of switch that around and maybe focus more on control, which, if we did that in Denmark, Sweden, maybe it would attract some sort of customers, but probably not the customers we were looking at back then, right?
Okay. So really understanding the people you're trying, obviously. I mean, when you say it out loud, it makes so much sense. Understanding the people you want to sell to and the culture and all that. But that's really key, right? And not just like, we have a great product. Obviously, it's going to fit into this country, but it maybe not. It wouldn't be the first story about someone trying to go to another market and then failing because they...
You have that a lot. Swedish companies trying to go to Denmark and they fail because the whole sales process,
so similar.
Everything. But
we're not.
But it's when I was moving to Denmark and people ask me, I was always saying I'm moving someplace exotic, and although it was 3 hours away and not that exotic, it was in culture ultimately, and it is very different. The business culture in different countries.
For sure.
I think that's quite clear.
For sure, and I think. Just to elaborate a little bit on that, I was in a company before as well, and we also had the same. It was a tech. We also had the same approach when we tried to go to Sweden and Norway as we did in Denmark, and we just didn't get that this product did not even fit. And sometimes people also forget a very simple task of looking at who is already there, right? Because sometimes it is just not worth going to that market because you will never. I mean, if you're okay with then getting 1.5%, 2% of the market, by all means. But is it worth your efforts? Is it worth the cost?
Yeah.
It might not be. You also said, do we need more personnel in marketing in the future? Can you elaborate? Yeah.
Yes, I answered yes. I think it needs to be more personalized. I think it's proven to be much more efficient, but it can't be faked personalized. It ultimately needs to attract me and as a person. So if it's personalized to me, it has more chances of success, right? I also think it's maybe a nicer world to live in when it's personalized, right? And when I am not exposed to 500 things I don't care about, but just get exposed to stuff relevant for me. But what I mean by fake personalized is when maybe it's something that I really don't need or don't have the problem, and it's just personalized to be personalized, but there's no.
I get it.
It's not really aimed at me in any way or
for sure. And I also think that when I think about fake personalized, I look very much when I consume content on whatever platform, I look very much at authenticity because I think it's fairly easy to see if people are actually saying what I want to hear or what they actually feel, right?
Yeah.
Some of the realest videos are also the ones that do best on engagement on the different social platforms because you can sense that people are passionate about something or people really that's what they believe in. I might not agree with that, but I can definitely feel their passion and that they're being authentic.
Yeah. No, definitely.
You mentioned, and that surprised me, quick personal videos or bigger, well-thought-out videos. Why the well-thought-out ones? That surprised me.
That might be a surprising one. No, it's just something they stand out to me like the funnest projects I've done.
Okay, in that sense.
So I think it's also, when afterwards, when you look at it and you take pride in the work you've done, the bigger productions, and I haven't done huge productions, right? But the nicer productions where I've had help from a videographer, maybe some other people involved, like designers or motion designers, things like that make the video a little bit more, look professional and nice. They've been fun to do, and I've been excited of sharing them. I've been excited. There's still some up on Pleo's YouTube probably where I'm featuring, and
for sure,
those were just more fun to do. although I love personal videos and I'm doing them constantly, and some of my colleagues might be a little bit over the fact that I'm sending videos all the time, but they both have a role. They're two different tools in a toolbox to me.
Yeah, I was going to say that the personal videos, have they become more of a tool, and then the more well thought out, well produced, are more like fun to make? So it's like they serve two different purposes?
Definitely serve two different purposes.
Okay.
But I think the good thing about personal videos is you can apply them to a lot of different things.
For sure.
One example, like a personal video I do, is new joiners to the company. So I send them out 50 seconds or something, welcoming them to the company. I'm just telling them I'm excited for them to join. We usually get a little description of them, so you can relate on something, right? Like whether they live in a specific country or have a hobby or so on. Yeah. So I usually send that out, and that's a completely different, like maybe more HR-related personal video. In the future, if I ever apply to other jobs, I will most likely stand out by making a video.
For sure.
I probably did for my current job at Juni, right? Yeah. I can't remember now straight off, but you can apply these personal videos in so many ways. Yeah. I'm doing a house exchanges sometimes. We send a presentation of the house, and there the skill of making personal videos comes in handy again, right? So it's so weird, but it's a tool that I use for a lot of different things.
Yeah. And it's a great tool to have in your toolbox, and then combining that with like you actually liking it's good, so that you don't have to just because you see that it's working. But Björn, we're actually closing in on the end of the episode, and I'm sure you and I could be talking for much more. But we always end the episode about talking a little bit future. And one of the things I'm very interested in asking you about is, how do you see personal videos being used and that space in the coming years, especially maybe now that people are more and more used to seeing themselves on camera, like we talked about?
I mean, I would expect it to increase quite drastically, and also as the generations shift, right? Like the new generations coming are so confident on video, right?
Yeah.
Many of them. So they will enter the junior sales commercial roles, right? And start applying what they know onto their job. So I think there's something there. But then there's also the technologies are advancing and becoming better and better. Yeah. You can find tools now to transcribe automatically, to remove all these awkward words. There's this tool called Descript that I love, because it removes the
really?
these the filler words. Okay. And you're like, oh, how the hell do they do that? Yeah. And they can even like change your if you said this is a 2-minute video, but you wanted to say a 5-minute video, they can even change the to a 5. It's a bit it's a bit magic, right?
Okay. AI.
So AI is really booming as well, and you can see it as well with Synthesia, which does like synthetic videos, and you're like, okay, where is this taking us?
And that's becoming scary, I think, a little bit.
It's becoming scary, but that's also where I feel like being personal and showing your personality will make the difference here. Yeah. Because if it's just an avatar talking, and you might put a fake personality to that avatar, and it might be jokey and whatever you do, I still think there will be some value to being yourself and, and expressing yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And luckily we have a little bit of ways, but I have seen some examples of like a fake Tom Cruise here and there, and it's like, did he just say that? And then you find out that it's like deep fake, right? So we're not that far away, but I completely agree that authenticity and being yourself will shine through at all times. We will end it on maybe you giving the best advice, maybe for people. You yourself were in customer success and product and stuff like that. What would be your best advice for people being in customer success and in that space on like working with video, maybe like kind of summing up everything we talked about?
even if they aren't looking at video, I think it's time to look at it and to optimize the processes where you can. So I always say, like, don't take video as the thing to do either. Like, it's a tool, like email and your phone calling up your customers is a tool. I just think experiment.
Yeah.
Try, experiment with it on different places, and whether it's internal, like I said, with welcoming a new team member, or external where it's welcoming a client, or social media if you want to take that step. But I think ultimately start experimenting and start becoming better at it, because it will take 100 videos before you get there, and you can do those 100 videos in 1 month or in 10 years. It's up to you, but at some point it's good to speed that up so you have that skill. And for me personally, it has boosted my career. I think I wouldn't be in the place I am if I didn't work with the video the way I do. And I think it's something a little bit unexpected as well. So I don't really put it on the CV. Maybe I should, right? Because obviously it's something
excellent on video.
Yeah. No, but you don't. It's just a little bit of a surprise. And I think my colleagues at Juni, or at least the people that recruited me, got very pleasantly surprised when they realized, oh, this guy is bringing, of course, his product marketing expertise and his skills, but he's also bringing this thing to the company. And as a remote company as well, we were initially remote now, so it made a big difference to communicate in that way and not on Slack. So start experimenting would be my best tip.
That's perfect. And Björn, we will end it on that. Thank you so much for stepping by. I really agreed. I think you mixed in another purpose to come to Copenhagen, but setting aside time to visit us here in the studio, I'm so grateful, and thank you for sharing all your knowledge.
Super happy to have been
awesome. Here. And then I will switch to Danish and say, tusind tak til dig, der også kiggede med derude, eller lyttede med. Jeg vil helt klart anbefale dig, at du kiggede med på vores YouTube, som sagt, drevet af content, men uanset hvad, så vil jeg bare sige tusind tak, fordi du gad at bruge din tid på at lytte med på episoden her, og så er der altså en mega fed gæst i studiet igen i næste uge. Og til vi ses igen i næste uge, er det rigtig godt.